right, and we are full on in Kenobi mode here on the Old Republic podcast. We have joining on with us today to talk about the novel Brotherhood. We have Pete, also known as Plo Cool. Pete, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, if you've been following along with the podcast, Plo Cool has been on to join us a couple of times, on to talk about the Green Knight, on to talk about Dune, and just I think you came on once, so we just kind of talked about films, so that was a good time. But you're here with us doing a double header today to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Brotherhood. So I think that's pretty exciting. Everyone, had a pretty good time with Kenobi, and we have a lot of good books and stuff coming out, and one of those was Brotherhood. So this just came out about a month ago, in May of 2022. It was written by Mike Chen, who had previously written for Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, a Certain Point of View book. He did the chapter called Disturbance, which was about Darth Sidious, but this is his first full novel in the Star Wars world, and this was one I was very excited about. And Cassie, I think you were pretty excited about this one too, right?
Yeah, I mean, just like that cover on itself, Brotherhood, and you kind of like, I forget like math, but like the lightsabers are kind of in a line, they don't intersect. Is that like, that's parallel, right?
That is parallel, yeah. If the lines never cross, yeah.
Yeah, and it went through a couple iterations because that darn robotic hand, like sometimes you forget about it, but it was kind of made to look photorealistic, but like with like a few like Instagram filters, kind of in that Jude Watson kind of like Jedi Apprentice, Jedi Quest style of book cover, which I'm like, love it, so I was here for it.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. What about you, Pete? Were you hyped up for this book coming out, or was this one of the ones you were looking forward to? Because there are a lot of really good Star Wars books coming out, kind of this spring and into the summer. What about Brotherhood? Was that high up on the list of things you wanted to read, or?
Oh, for sure. I was pretty excited when they announced it. I kind of like the old school look of the cover, kind of as Cassia was saying. I hadn't read anything by Mike Chen before, but actually, I've read his short story From a Certain Point of View for The Empire Strikes Back, so I take that back. But that had been the only thing I had read from him. But I'm always excited when they bring in a new voice, to kind of add their own take on the Star Wars universe. So yeah, I was looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely, and anytime you kind of get to flesh out the story a little bit more is always welcome. And as Star Wars fans, we definitely like kind of that dynamic, that relationship between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin. And this one gets started off. It's kind of taking place right on the heels of Attack of the Clones. So the Clone Wars has just started, and kind of just dumps you in there and gets you into what's going on. So it's a lot of kind of political espionage, which is kind of fun, that you're picking up from that. And then, kind of the kind of entry steps into the end of the war. So we get to take a lot of, kind of exploring of their relationships and kind of the psyche, especially kind of in the first part of the book of Anakin, how he's dealing with this war starting and how he's dealing with being a Padawan and kind of making those steps into being a Jedi Knight, which I thought was pretty interesting. I think that is, part of their relationship we never really got to see even in like the Clone Wars. But, going into the story, were there certain aspects that either of you were looking forward to seeing? Obviously, we're going to Cato Neimoidia. We knew something exciting obviously had happened there, but what sort of, dynamic between the two of them were you most looking forward to learning more about, or, from the book, which ones did you kind of pick up on and really liked exploring?
For me, I was like, Siri Tachi gotta mention my childhood, Yeah, and we got a couple like KOTOR nods. Terrace was mentioned as a place that Obi-Wan and Anakin went on a mission to, and then I totally missed this just listening to this, but the type of ship that the Ebon Hawk is, not Ethan Hawke, But the Ebon Hawk, that's the one that Anakin flies. Like, I guess I'm really not a KOTOR fan because I had to have someone else point that out. But
I didn't know that.
yeah. So, you know, like, KOTOR is totally canon. Like, I'm not reaching at all, you know, but yeah. So there were some fun Easter eggs, and I really thought that this was a great companion piece to Queen's Hope, which we reviewed episode 121. And I really thought that this book got Padme and Kenobi's relationship to Anakin right, you know? And you can always have different flavors and stuff, but, like, if you're kind of seeing it from Anakin's point of view, like, he's going to see himself more favorably. And, like, this is kind of when the war is beginning. I don't think he's as jaded or, like, committed as many war crimes. So I think, like, he's a little bit more hopeful and fun-loving, you know? Even though he's getting used to his hand. But what do you guys think?
I like that you brought up that it, you know, had some kind of parallels with the Queen's Hope, because they take place almost at the same time, kind of right at the beginning of the war. And if you read through Queen's Hope, you're kind of getting that perspective from Padme, and in Brotherhood, you're getting kind of that, you know, perspective on the relationship and the start of the war from Anakin. So I think, you know, kind of having those books side by side is really cool. But yeah, throwing it over to you, Pete. What part of the story or the relationship dynamics, or what were you looking forward to reading about the most when you heard this thing announced?
More so just the character interactions. I was looking forward to exploring Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship more in depth. You know, Clone Wars did a lot in that regard, but I thought it would have. I was just kind of. I'm always looking for more of that, and I think kind of where you can bridge the gap between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, specifically on their relationship, is always smart, because anything you add to it just kind of makes the fall of Anakin more tragic. But that was kind of the main thing I was looking forward to. The Cato Neimoidia, I thought. You know, it's always the funny thing to me. You know, of late, Star Wars just can't leave anything to the imagination, which isn't necessarily. It's not a bad thing that they went to Cato Neimoidia, but it's like okay, what kind of like minutia dialogue can we take from to create a story out of? But I was actually kind of looking forward to see what that business on Cato Neimoidia was, and. So I was looking forward to that, and I did think it was cool how Mike Chen and E.K. Johnston were able to collaborate to make sure their two books coincided, and I know they apparently had some pretty extensive conversations on that, which I thought it was cool and shows that they care about canon. I think there is such thing as too much adherence to canon, but that type of continuity, when you have two stories so closely connected, I think
You have to.
yeah, you have to. And especially with a character like Padme, and even though she's not in the book that much, her presence is felt throughout it, and I thought that probably was because of the conversations Chen had with Johnston.
Yeah. Those were some of my favorite parts. Kind of early in the book, you get to explore that relationship and them spending time together, and, you know, kind of running off on these little adventures on Coruscant, and, you know, just having kind of these more intimate moments that we're getting to spend some time in with them, because that's not really something that we ever got to see, you know, either in the Clone Wars or in the films, was, you know, them just spending like any time together, really. So I really liked you know, E.K. Johnston's book for that, but I also really liked kind of the inclusion of that into this book, and that sets up something pretty pivotal, I think, in the master and apprentice, this brotherhood dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and that, you know, that Obi-Wan can basically kind of sense these emotions in Anakin. So he was pretty keen on this right from the start. It doesn't seem like, you know, Anakin was getting this past him at all, and I think that you know, that really kind of creates a an interesting dynamic then that you carry on in through the Clone Wars and to the Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. I mean, I remember in the Clone Wars when it kind of like you have a scene where like Anakin is very mad about Clovis in his room, you know, with the Ben pod racer, Ben Quaderno's poster in his room, which I'm like, that's actually kind of hilarious. He has that in there, but and then like Obi-Wan kind of basically hints that he knows what's going on with Anakin and Padme. And I'm like, would he really know? But I'm like, yeah, he would know, because I don't think Anakin is any kind of subtle person, especially when it comes to Padme, you know? But even though, like, he does kind of revert to, like, love struck, you know, like Anakin, like, we do see a lot of growth from him, like that transition from Padawan to Knight, you know? And when he's kind of helping that conscientious objector Padawan who's more of a pacifist, who really doesn't like war, and I'm like, sorry, kid, you were born into the wrong generation. So, and, like, that kind of helped me see, like, the Jedi, like, it's kind of like parenthood, like Jedi Masters to Padawan, and when they kind of become warriors in the Clone Wars, that war kind of breaks that down. They're not really raising their Padawans in a good environment, and it's kind of a betrayal. What did you guys think about that?
The betrayal between... Rephrase that again?
You know how, like, the Jedi are going into war, and you kind of get the sense that, like, the Padawans are kind of being brought up, like, to go to war, you know, and that's kind of like they're supposed to be the future, and, like, the future that they're given is a war, and, like, they're expected to fight and die, which really isnthe Jedi way, you know?
I think I really actually like that aspect of the book and how that's emphasized so well, because I think there's like been a common trend within modern readings of Star Wars, especially like the prequels. It's just where it's just like, oh, Jedi bad. They were wrong and everything, and there's not much nuance brought to the conversation. It's just like the Jedi were bad. That's why Anakin fell. And I don't like the simplified view of all of that, and that's why I actually really liked what Mike Chen did, because he brought the complexity to it really well with that. I forget the name of the Padawan in the book.
Mill Alabeth.
Yes, Mill. I really liked her character, and I thought they kind of like Chen did a good job of using a single character to represent how probably a lot of different Padawans are feeling. I mean, they kind of single her out as being the only one, but I feel like she wasn't isolated, because you have Jedi like Barriss, who are also disillusioned, and Dooku, who's disillusioned kind of way before the war even started. So they're not necessarily isolated incidents. So I think, and also just kind of reading this along with the High Republic of recently, like the contrast between the Jedi, because most of the books I've been reading, Star Wars books I've been reading lately, you know, have been the High Republic books, and just kind of reading this, it's like a stark contrast of who the Jedi were and who they are now. But yeah, there's that type of betrayal of who they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I really like the character of Mill Alabeth, and she almost kind of served as like a conscience to Anakin, kind of in a similar way that Ahsoka did. So I guess I could see some parallels there, but I thought that she was kind of a good kind of story medium to go and kind of keep contrasting, you know, Anakin's more kind of brazen style with the way she was, you know, processing things as, you know, kind of this highly empathetic, you know, Padawan learner who eventually, spoilers, who kind of walks away from the Order at the end of it. And yeah, I thought that it was really interesting to kind of get that because, like you said, Pete, we get a lot of especially in the prequels and it's even up into like the Last Jedi. The Jedi did a lot of bad stuff, but there is a little bit more nuance to it in the way that kind of each individual of the the members of the Jedi were handling this. So I thought it was interesting to get kind of a different take from it. So I like that characterization and how she played in, and I also love just kind of the more like playful parts of kind of that story with the Padawans, where Anakin's going and he has to basically do like a teaching, like like a question and answer sort of session with the Padawans, and all of the Jedi Masters are giving him some shtick about it because they think it's hilarious that he has to go and talk to these Padawans, which I think is funny in a way, and also kind of sad because it seems like if you're the teachers of these kids, then that should be something that you want to do. But yeah, I thought that was just kind of a funny section of the book there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got to see a different perspective of Anakin that's not necessarily him with Ahsoka, but like it was an interesting arc because sometimes I think like Anakin is just like, I'm ready to fight, like I will maybe think about the ethics and the moral ramifications of what I'm doing later, but like to have him paired with like kind of a pacifist Padawan, mm-hmm. that was kind of fun. And I liked it.
Yeah, I could see a lot of kind of parallels between Mills' persona and probably the way that Qui-Gon would have felt about things going into the Clone Wars. So just kind of some parallels there, and then that makes you wonder, kind of the what if possibility of that all. But yeah, Mill I thought was really good, kind of new addition. And then we had another new character introduced in this book, Neimoidian guard by the name of Rug, who helps Obi-Wan out when he gets there. She's trying to kind of I guess get to the bottom of the truth of this. So to set it up, there's an explosion on Cato Neimoidia, and basically it's a lot of finger pointing between the Republic and the Separatists. And the goal is to get Cato Neimoidia, this big trade federation on whichever side, and he goes there to investigate, and that's how you get into that trouble on Cato Neimoidia. But did either of you have any thoughts about Rug's character, or kind of what they brought to the table in terms of Obi-Wan's story and the way that we felt about him?
I thought Rug was actually one of the highlights of the book for me. I thought she kind of contrasted Obi-Wan in a good way, but kind of kept that trying to see the bigger picture type thing, which obviously is a mirror of just how Obi-Wan tries to operate, kind of that investigative character. And I thought her interactions with Obi-Wan were really good. And it was just it was nice to have her there also, just because it was so frustrating how Obi-Wan was framed for the whole thing, or the Jedi were framed for the whole thing, and Obi-Wan got framed. And it kind of reminded me of the Ahsoka arc in Clone Wars. Not in the same level, but kind of how frustrating it is to see one of the heroes get blamed for something they're not responsible for. So having Rug there was nice to kind of he has an ally to get him out of that. And it kind of contrasts again with Ahsoka, how Ahsoka didn't really have that. But Obi-Wan was fortunate to have someone there who could help him out.
Yeah, I mean, Obi-Wan is always an excellent detective, and neutrality to me is more interesting in storytelling usually than an all-out war, which I think is like why when we covered like Knights of the Old Republic 1, I fell in love with Manon, and I was like, this is so cool. Love it. So yeah, it's like he has to keep things a certain way. Like you can't let things escalate, and I guess like it's kind of something I've been thinking about, and kind of like what's going on Cato Neimoidia. Like they don't quite know like if Cato Neimoidia is going to join the war, on what side, what does the rest of the galaxy think of them, and it just kind of got me to think deeper than like a binary, which sometimes I think Star Wars does, and like like in real life, I think we do, like, because we live in an age of political extremes and polarization, and like it just got me to think like it's okay to like stand up for what you believe in and stuff, but like no one is 100% correct, and there's nuance, and you kind of have to see the whole picture and have empathy where you can.
Yeah, definitely. There were some good takeaways there, and kind of the way that this book was framed was that we were going to find out what the trouble on Cato Neimoidia was, and it. I don't know. I guess I didn't really have like a thought for what that meant, really. But it wasn't this. But I think that that's really interesting. Yeah, and like you said, it sets up kind of this weird kind of political, like, kind of dueling sides over the neutrality and whether neutrality is going to stay, and the stuff with Obi-Wan getting framed, and he's basically there at the request of Count Dooku, who wanted someone from the Jedi Council to go and investigate. Knowing what we know now, that Sidious, Palpatine were kind of behind getting this plan put into motion. But we meet someone there for the first time, I think, in Star Wars canon, her first appearance, which then will lead into the Clone Wars, where we get to spend a lot of time with her. But Asajj Ventress, we get to see her kind of, as this kind of, political decoy in a way, and this adversary to Obi-Wan, and kind of their interactions. And I think that their relationship dynamic is one that I've always kind of enjoyed, because they seem kind of similar in a lot of ways, and kind of this friction between them. But what about Asajj's inclusion in this book? Did you were there any highlights, or what did you think about kind of her dynamic and interactions with Obi-Wan Kenobi? Does it make you feel any differently about her and the stories that we have now going forward, or anything about her that you'd like to include?
Asajj and Obi-Wan always kind of have an interesting dynamic, because they are very similar, and you kind of see some similarities like Asajj and Anakin as well. So I think it's perfect that Asajj has her introduction in Brotherhood. And it's an interesting character, because we've just been kind of waiting for her official introduction in the new canon, and I think it kind of sets her up as like a cool villain, like part of the world of adventure in Star Wars, so she does have a good intro.
Yeah, I thought they used her well. I still think Ventress's kind of appearance in the old 2003 Clone Wars will be the best intro for the character. Which kind of, well, I'll speak on that, how they've been slowly canonizing a lot of things from those those two parts. But I thought they used her really well, and it kind of sets up this. Funny enough, this whole book kind of just feels like a Clone Wars arc.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that's like the book's strongest suit, but also it can be kind of its weakest element too. But I did really like how they used her, and they didn't. She is the main villain, but they don't like have her like take over the book in any way. She's used sparingly, but she's used effectively.
Yeah,
it's
I think
a good recipe.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's good because I always kind of wanted a little bit more from her, and you never quite got it, and that usually is a good thing and not a bad thing. So I think that he handled her pretty well, and the way that he describes her in the writing was really good. It was very very visual, and I thought that was really good for someone who's kind of tackling these characters for the first time. So definitely an excellent job there, and you'd mentioned it's kind of harkening back to those that micro series, the Clone Wars, the Tartarovskys there, and one of the things that I really liked and kind of kept going back to it, and it's something that they don't necessarily really talk about it, but they do highlight it visually in the micro series, is Anakin's mechanical hand. He talks about it a lot and how he can't really feel the Force through it the same way that he does through his real hand. And then we get to kind of see the capstone on that in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, where we're exploring where Vader is now, mechanically. But I thought that was really interesting, and I liked those sections where he's thinking about it's his hand, it responds just like his hand, but he just can't feel the Force through it as quickly or as in tune as he can with his real hand, and I really liked that stuff as well.
Yeah, it would be an adjustment, and he has to adjust his fighting style, like how he even kind of just interacts, like interpersonally, like with Padme, and just kind of like as he's kind of standing around doing his thing, like feeling the Force, like it is an adjustment, like, and Anakin kind of goes through a lot. He lost his mother. He lost his hand. A war started. He's married. He's a knight. Like, Anakin has a lot on his plate. And what I kind of loved is, like, this book kind of felt like a companion piece, like, to, like I mentioned, Queen's Hope. Like, if I worked at a bookstore, I would be like, ooh, put these on the same table, like, it's like kind of like two versions of the same story, in a way. But it also reminded me of Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith, like kind of that poetic quality to Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship, and just my favorite writing in Star Wars is honestly the dark section, like, if I could get that tattooed on my heart, like, I probably would.
Yeah, absolutely. This is some really good Star Wars writing, and then it kind of keeps your interest too. Like you mentioned, Pete, it's kind of like a Clone Wars arc, and it's definitely kind of throwing you around a little bit into characters and scenarios that we've seen before. So get to spend a lot of time with Dexter Jetster, which is pretty fun. I know there's a lot of fans of Dexter out there, and he plays a pretty pivotal role. I guess we kind of learn a little bit more about the relationship he has with Obi-Wan, and kind of his background as a sort of gatherer of information. But did either of you have any kind of favorite callbacks or little Easter eggs or nuggets that just when you read it, you're like, oh yeah, you did the like Leo meme when you're going through the pages? Or
I did like that they canonized Mace Windu taking out a whole like droid army essentially on Tatooine. Kind of, again, going back to the 2003 Clone Wars. I'll take anything that references that. So that was probably my favorite little callback.
Yeah. In my mind, like, the Tartarovsky 2003 micro series is canon unless it actively, like, contradicts something.
Yep, that's how I...
Yeah. That's my head canon, and it's canon to me until someone rips it from me, Well, not rips it from me, but, like, recontextualizes it,
Yep.
But, yeah, for me, like, Siri Tachi, like, And I think, like, that chapter was released in advance, and I probably should have, like, picked up on that forever. But when I was listening to it, I was like, Siritachi! Did a rewind on Audible, and I'm like, Siritachi! Like, I wasn't just imagining that. Like, she was one of my favorite characters, and it sounds like in the upcoming Padawan novel, maybe we get a little bit more in that vein, which, like, I'm excited for. But I actually have a question for you guys. Like, in the old canon, any guesses as to what the incident on Cato Neimoidia was?
Oh, is there an answer?
Yes.
Oh, I actually don't know.
I think that I maybe did know at one point, but I am totally drawing a blank on it right now. But just as in general, like I mentioned, like I didn't really have any expectations for what that was. So the book was an interesting take on it, and I was just kind of in it for the ride of it. But yeah, I'm interested to know or to remember. So
it's actually really hilarious. The business on Cato Neimoidia is that Anakin and Obi-Wan were on a diplomatic mission there, and they went to a banquet, and Obi-Wan had an adverse allergic reaction to, like, seafood, and Anakin had to save him there. So I believe that's the old business, and, like, part of me is like, could we have a banquet? Could, like, Obi-Wan, like, react to it? Like, it didn't happen, but, like, I don't know. Like, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would be good. Yeah, we should definitely need to at least have some sort of banquet they can go to, and save them again. Maybe there's some other business that we can attend to somewhere else.
And business doesn't really transition well to what I want to say, but I'm really good at transitions, if you've noticed that in the podcast. I like, there are transitions. Like, do they flow? Probably not, but I have fun with them. But it's funny because at the end of the novel, you kind of have Anakin and Padme kind of admit that they kind of make fun of, like, Obi-Wan's mullet. And I was like, that's kind of funny. And then, like, at the end of this book, you kind of see that Obi-Wan kind of has a little bit of a haircut, kind of like to get him more into, like, how he looks in the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. And it really brought me back to season 3 of BBC's Sherlock, where the quote, "I don't shave for Sherlock Holmes" is said. So I'm like, can we get some merch or something that says, "I don't cut my mullet for Anakin Skywalker"? Because I really thought that was funny.
Yeah, that was pretty funny, and I kind of liked those little moments, like I said, between Anakin and Padme, where you're just getting to spend some time with the two, and then converse to that, you have Obi-Wan talking about Siri and talking about Satine and stuff, and that's just really sad because he's having these thoughts crop up, and he's basically just monologuing about how if he just ignores it for a little bit, it'll go away until it comes back, and he knows that those feelings are always going to come back, and he always just has to kind of shut them down, which is really sad and really tragic, and that kind of leads into some of the stuff that we saw in the series Obi-Wan Kenobi. So
yeah. I mean, it is kind of interesting to get a little bit of the views of, like, how Obi-Wan and Anakin love people. Because, like, Anakin has always, like, loved one person, but it's kind of like he can take it too far, and sometimes it's obsessive, like, even though he loves one person, it's like, maybe you should, like, spread the love, like, share the love, but and even Padme is kind of more able to, like, kind of, like, she loves Anakin, but, like, she can put the mission first and, like, have room for more people in her heart. And, like, Obi-Wan, like, I don't think it takes anything away that, like, Obi-Wan, like, kind of, like, loves Satine, loves Siri, maybe had, like, flirtations with other people, which is actually really hilarious, because it's, like, you always kind of think of Obi-Wan as, like, the guy who's, like, forever alone, but, like, the ladies like him, you know? And I think it's kind of like, even though, like, Obi-Wan doesn't really actively kind of act on these, like, it seems like he maybe kind of understands attachment and love in a more mature way than Anakin does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, some of that stuff was my, I keep saying a lot of the things were kind of my favorite parts of the books, but yeah, just kind of those little interactions and just where everyone kind of was in their own head were, made this book really kind of worthwhile to me. So I guess to kind of wrap this up, we talked a little bit about the story, we talked a little bit about the interactions, but Pete, what were your overall thoughts about the book, and do you think this is worth people's time to pick up and read, or download to listen to? What were your kind of closing thoughts on this one?
I really liked it. I thought it was a great book. Again, I thought it was like a Clone Wars arc and that was its best qualities, and also I think the one thing that maybe I didn't like is that some of the overall conflict was resolved kind of awkwardly. And it almost like you didn't get any answers on what happened. Mm-hmm. But it's a very character-driven book, and it explores the relational aspects. And one thing I actually wanted to mention was how it explained Qui-Gon's relationship to both Anakin and Obi-Wan. I don't know, how spoilerly is this supposed to be?
You can go ahead and
away.
Yeah, a spoiler if you're planning to read Brotherhood, you might just want to skip ahead a couple of minutes. But yeah, go ahead and spoil away.
So I guess I think it's a key part of the novel, and kind of actually explains the title of the book, but how there's kind of been used different ways to describe Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship. Is Obi-Wan more of a father figure, or is he more of a brother? Obviously, the title here suggests more of the brother, but Chen kind of goes to explain that through how they're brothers through their connection to Qui-Gon. And how Qui-Gon was the father figure for both of them. And that is a key part of who they are, and kind of what connects them. Because Obi-Wan would not have taken Anakin and his Padawan if it weren't for Qui-Gon. And I think it's really, Chen handles that really well, in an interesting manner. And I thought it kind of back to that duel of the fates thing. I mean, when Qui-Gon and Maul they're fighting for the fate of Anakin. I know there's that famous Filoni speech on that whole thing, and he explains it much better than I. But it's just, you see that play out here. Qui-Gon's influence is felt throughout the book, and how he brought these two people together, and how their brotherhood plays out throughout the years. So anyway, the book is very good. I would recommend it.
Okay. 5 out of 5 stars would recommend. What do you think, Cassia? Is this a book worth people's time getting into, or do you think you can just kind of, pick up on this story enough elsewhere? Or?
I definitely would recommend picking it up. Like, I'd give it like 4.5 out of 5 stars, or 5 out of 5 stars, personally. Because I think it's like, you get the beginning of the Clone Wars from Anakin's perspective and Obi-Wan's perspective, and you get to see their brotherhood, like that transition to where they're kind of more equals. They're knights, and they're kind of a little bit more equals, but they kind of still have to figure out like what their new dynamic is, and it's Brotherhood, you know, and it just kind of reminds me of the old Jude Watson books, and we get Easter eggs like from the kind of ship that the Ebon Hawk is that I forget. I think it's like a YT something. Like, we're really good KOTOR fans here, but like, and also like 2003 micro series Easter eggs, and yeah, it's a fun ride. Would recommend, and I don't cut my mullet for Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, there you go. T-shirts incoming for that one. Yeah, I'll kind of just echo that. It's definitely a good read, and if you are into reading Star Wars books at all, you should probably pick this one up and give it a read. It's not a super difficult read. It's not crazy long, so I think you'll make it through it. And you know, there's a lot going on to kind of keep your attention and to get into these characters a little bit more and kind of see their growth as as Obi-Wan's transitioning out from being the master to being the colleague, and as Anakin is moving out of being the Padawan into a Jedi Knight. So yeah, definitely good, and definitely worth your time to read. And let us know if you pick this up, what your favorite parts or what your favorite kind of little Easter eggs or what your favorite kind of character interactions were. Let us know that. Connect with us online, and definitely make sure you connect with Pete with Plo Kool online. So Pete, tell everyone where they can catch up with you.
Exclusively on Instagram at Plo_cool. My only remaining social media presence.
there you go. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, yep. But yeah, it's a great account. You can read kind of more thoughts from Pete about this book. I saw you put your kind of recap and stuff like that on it, and also on the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and just a lot of good stuff. So make sure you give him a follow and check in with him there. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on and talking about Brotherhood. It was an awesome time. It was a great book, and hopefully people out there enjoyed it. So thanks for joining us on this one, everyone. May the Force be with you.